everybody. We have a guest today who brings a depth wisdom that goes far beyond the physical. We're going to be diving into the art of mindfulness, the power of yielding, and how meditative movement can reshape how we live, lead, and love. My guest today is Jeff Patterson. How are you, Jeff?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much. So, Jeff, you are a lifelong martial artist, teacher, and you're also the founder of the Yielding Warrior. It's a Northwest Fighting Arts in Portland Tai Chi Academy. And you also have students from all over the world. Tell me more about what you do.
Yeah, so I've been running a academy here in Portland for 31 years now, and we teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Eskrima, and we have our meditative arts program. I also have online programs for the meditative arts where I'm working with people from all over the world. I work with a lot of other academies and yoga studios, showing them how to build out a meditative arts program within their academy to capitalize on that downtime, because a lot of martial arts academies, they're busy from 5 to 9 o'clock, but during the late morning and early afternoon hours, there's nothing going on. I show them how to build a meditation practice in their academy, which has been fun because it lets me work with people from different cities, helping a lot of other people. Some of those academies are building up programs where through the years, they'll have thousands of people come through their academy and be able to help a lot of people in their community.
Wow, that's incredible. Mindfulness is one of those things that more and more people are finding out how important. And it is also something that I have personally discovered that you don't need anything to practice it. We'll talk more about that. Before we go on, I'm so excited about this conversation today. In my 20s, Shaolin Famen Chuan, which is a form of Kung Fu, I became a black belt. And the practice that we did there, we have all the physical part of it, but we also did a lot of meditations. So in my case, it was very helpful because I became an intern for a whole year. I lived in the school. For me, it was a way of life. It was Monday through Sunday. That's what I was doing. So it's very close to my heart. So,
Very nice.
and I see that you're also an author. You're an online educator. You're looking to teach anyone that's looking to cultivate clarity, balance, and purpose, right? Let's talk a little bit about your own training. I want you to tell me, how did this help you personally? Tell me when you began and how. Let's talk about you for a minute.
Yeah. So I got introduced to the meditative arts in a bit of a roundabout way, in that as a young guy, I was very much into Western boxing. I love the challenge of the sport, the fast pace, the technique and strategy and the science behind it. I used to go to a boxing gym that was just a few blocks down the street from my academy. And at a boxing gym, things are run a lot different than traditional style fitness classes, in that it's not one teacher up in front of a group of students leading a group. It's usually a few coaches running around the gym, and each one of those coaches might have a handful of fighters that they're working with. Well, at this one particular gym, one of the coaches that was there was a very reputable coach. He had created champions in both the amateur and the professional arena. And I really wanted to get to spend some time with him, but he wasn't looking to take on any new athletes. He had a full card. I would always show up at the gym when I knew he was going to be there, and I'd work hard and try to get him to notice me. After about 3 or 4 months of following him around, he finally started giving me some tips. It was only maybe 2 weeks from when he first started helping me out when he said something that changed my life forever. That if you really want to be a good boxer, you should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. At the time, I was this 19-year-old kid thinking, isn't that for old people in the park? How's that going to help me be a better fighter? I had a lot of respect for him. And so I knew he was trying to help me and decided to take on the practice. Not only has it changed my life in many ways throughout the years, but I've had over 26,000 students come through my physical location here in Portland and thousands more online. I've heard hundreds of stories through the years on how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And, that's what's made me passionate about writing my last few books and creating my online programs and just trying to get this message out there and show people how to create an evolving life practice with the meditative arts so they can reap the benefits of this amazing skill set.
That's beautiful because it benefits not only your physical body, but also your mind. And you mentioned your books. How many books have you written?
I've written 3 that are out there and published, and I've got a 4th one on the way that should launch by the 1st of the year.
You want to talk about your books?
Sure, yeah. My most recent book is kind of my up until now has been my favorite book. It's called The Yielding Warrior. And yielding is a concept used in meditative and martial arts for generations. You always hear stories about the little guy defeating the big guy. Yielding helps make that happen. I've broken yielding into 3 main pillars: physical yielding, which is what athletes in martial arts use, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. And all of those are valuable for somebody in athletics or martial arts. However, a lot of times when we talk about yielding in martial arts, we talk about the physical energy element of it, not as much the mental and philosophical side. With physical yielding, it's basically the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually would push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And now I can respond with less effort. So I'm not trying to butt heads with you and see if I'm bigger and stronger than you. In order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. While it may be a lifetime journey to master these skills, from day one, by integrating a meditation practice into your life, you start to see these things with a bit more clarity inside yourself. Not only do you start to see these things with more clarity internally, you also start to see these things with more clarity in other people. This is where we move into what I call mental yielding. Say, for example, you and I are having a conversation. I say something that unsettles you, and I pick up on it right from that first sign of imbalance. It's a lot easier at this point to adjust the conversation and keep us in a harmonious place than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. Learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. One, we're being more considerate, which is something that we could all do more of. And two, it allows us to be strategic so we can guide conversations to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. And this is good for our relationships, for business, for sales, for negotiations. There's so many different ways we can apply this idea in those scenarios. Lastly, the third pillar of yielding is emotional yielding. Emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but it's with our own interpersonal conflicts. Oftentimes, something will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down this path. And we might get an hour, a day, a week down the road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding, if we could have been more present and taken a step back when these things happen to us, not let our emotions get involved, we can often make a more educated choice that saves us a lot of heartache on the other side. I've been explaining this idea of yielding for many years, running my academy for over 31 years. One of the most common things I'll hear people say when I talk about this is, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do yielding all the time. I would agree that everybody does some degree of yielding. However, it's like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that most people will go through life and never have any clue of without a meditative practice in their life.
Absolutely. And here's my question. For someone who's out there, they like this idea, this concept of yielding mindset, and they want to put it into their routine. Let's say they've never practiced meditation or martial arts before. Is there a tip that you can give them?
You don't need to practice martial arts to understand the idea of yielding. However, to improve your awareness and to establish root and to be more present, you do have to start living a meditative lifestyle. With the meditative arts, people come, I find, through mainly five different paths to the meditative arts. There is the performance side, or the people that are coming to meditation to help improve their game. A lot of professional athletes these days are turning to the meditative arts to help improve their performance. Then you have the therapeutic side of the practice, which a lot of people come because they're dealing with ailments, or maybe they want to stay healthier into their later years to watch their grandkids grow up. Then there's the medical side, which helps with mental stability. It helps with there's lots of different ways that you can apply that. There's the philosophical side, which has always been a passion of mine. And the reason why I like this so much is that it helps you to expand your vision and see things from multiple different angles, allowing you to be more strategic and more in tune with different things that are going on. And then lastly, there's the spiritual side of the practice. When somebody comes to the meditative arts for one of these main five reasons, or maybe a combination of a couple of them, we start integrating movement practices, breath work, still practices, studying philosophical concepts that help create a path of practice for that individual to help them follow that direction that they want to do. And so to apply the idea of yielding, you need to take on a practice. You need to have this be part of your life so we can expand that awareness, get more sensitivity going and more in attunement. So we're aware of these things at a higher level so we can make those modifications and adjustments on the fly as things are happening in our lives.
Let me ask you this real quick. You probably get this question quite often. Or for those who have heard the word meditation but don't quite know the concept, how would you define meditation for someone who's not doesn't know?
Meditation has so many different approaches. I always try to think about the meditative arts as creating an evolving life practice with these strategies. You could take things from movement meditations like Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. You could have still meditations like a sitting meditation or a standing meditation. There's movement meditations outside of the form series where we do walking methods or just slow, different movements with the hands that connect it to the breath. There's breathing strategies. There's philosophical and mental strategies that we do to study and make a meditative practice. And I think all of these things come together when you create a meditative lifestyle. In simplistic terms, meditation helps you stay connected to who you truly are and take down the masks that we're always forced to wear in today's society. Often people get so caught up in life and life activities that they look at themselves in the mirror and they're still wearing those masks. Meditation helps us stay truly connected to our source, which is invaluable for our overall spiritual development.
Have you ever heard the concept? Because at one point, for some reason, I don't remember where I heard someone describe meditation as, oh, well, you just close your eyes and put your mind in blank. I heard about that. Some people are like, scared of meditation because they like, how am I going to put my mind in blank? And then the other one is like, oh, you just sit there and then you just let your thoughts pass by like they're clouds and then you just don't think anything of it. So people are like, how do I do that? You know? Have you ever heard any of that?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a different techniques within the meditative arts practice. And one of the most common things I hear people say is kind of related to what you just said, in that I'll hear people say, I tried meditation, but I just couldn't quiet my mind and it didn't work for me. And I've heard that so many times through the years. Somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that to be successful at meditation, you have to reach this state of nirvana where nothing bothers you and you're in this blissful place. And, that couldn't be further from the truth. I've been very fortunate to have trained with some amazing meditation practitioners from all over the world. I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We all do. It's part of being human. When we meditate, maybe you're doing a sitting practice or movement practice like Tai Chi or studying some breath work, and you're practicing for 20-minute session. And during that 20-minute session, say you get distracted 50 times. Well, every time you get distracted, you recognize that imbalance and you use your breath, your posture, your movement, if it's a movement practice, to help come back to center and find that focus. If you do that 50 times over that 20-minute session, you just got 50 repetitions of being out of balance, being distracted, finding focus and finding your center. Now, if you do this every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to find that center and that focus amongst any chaos that gets thrown your way. And that's part of the idea of training the mind is we want to learn how to bring ourselves back to present during those distractions. And part of that is through the consistency of the practice. So we develop a higher level of awareness and not get too far off track before we try to make that adjustment.
Wow. And my next question was going to be like, hey, how does someone begin to feel more aligned and grounded in their life? But I feel like you answer quite, I mean, that's to me, that's like, okay, yeah. If you do that as a repetition, I had no doubt that you can achieve a sense of grounding within your thoughts and feelings. And then you also, again, talking back about that awareness piece, it is huge because once you start noticing yourself differently, everything changes. Like you mentioned, your relationships, even your stress response, things that perhaps used to bother you before, maybe now they don't because your brain already recognizes that. So it's not so much of a threat. That's the way I look at it. Now, how do you make meditation practical and accessible? Is there a way that you can testify to
Yeah,
that?
I'm glad you asked me that because one of the biggest challenges that I've had over the last 31 years in being a teacher is how do I get people to do this practice so they see the value in it and it starts to change their life? I've tried so many things through the years and I've come up with these things I call the three considerations. If people do this when they start their practice, they're so much more likely to be successful and make it part of their life. The first one is thinking about what is it that's drawing you to the practice? Why do you want to take on the practice? Are you wanting to stay healthy in your later years, walk your dog and play with your grandkids? Or are you dealing with a stress disorder? You want to understand how to overcome anxiety or panic attacks, and you have a medical reason that's helping bring you to this practice. Or maybe you're a performer or an athlete that's looking to the practice to help them reach higher levels of awareness and ability in their sport or their game, whatever that is. And then once you find that why or that reason, then I like them to take it a little bit deeper and think, if I accomplish this and this helps me do what I intended to do, what are 10 or 20 things in my life that will positively change because of that practice? Maybe it helps your interpersonal communication, maybe your relationships with others, maybe it helps you perform at a higher level if you're a professional athlete, whatever that is for you, and really put some thought into that. And then flip the coin. And if you don't do this practice and you don't make this part of your life, what are 10 or 20 negative things that will happen in your life by not doing it? What I find is that if you put heartfelt thought into these considerations, you'll start to develop a need and a drive for the practice because you'll have so many reasons as to why to do it. Now it stops becoming this chore that you have to do every day, and it starts becoming something you get to do and you're lucky to do because it gives so much positive energy into your life. And then the next consideration is truly understanding the idea of consistency. Part of having a successful meditation practice is not doing it a couple times a week. It's doing it every day and making it part of your life. And there's this Chinese story that I love about the stonecutter, and it illustrates this idea really well. The stonecutter had been around for many, many years in China, and he created these beautiful sculptures of animals and landscapes. And his work is so detailed that anytime somebody would see it, they just knew it was his because it was so unique. Well, because of that, he would have people from all around that would come to study with him and stay with him for a few years at a time and apprentice under him to learn the trade. Every morning, this old stonecutter would begin the day by going down to the river and meditating. One day after his meditation session, he's walking along the river and he has this profound vision of this 6 foot tall, mystical Chinese jade dragon. And he's so taken by this vision that he just knew this had to be his next project. So he spends the next few months traveling all around looking for the perfect piece of jade for his new creation. Finally, when he finds a stone, he brings it back to his place. For the next period of time, day in and day out, he just sits with the stone, feeling the energy and trying to envision how this dragon would soon appear in the stone. One day he starts working on the stone and he carefully places his chisel on the backside of the rock and starts tapping away with his hammer to one specific location, hundreds, if not thousands of times, over and over, day in and day out. Nothing was changing. A few days went by and still nothing. A few more days went by and some of his apprentices started thinking, maybe he should try something different. It doesn't seem to be working. Finally, he tapped the stone, and this big 3 foot section of the stone separated and created this smooth, slightly curved line that was soon to be part of the dragon's back. One of his apprentices who was watching said, "How did you know that that strike was going to break the stone?" And the stonecutter replied, "It wasn't that strike that broke the stone. It was the thousands of strikes before it that broke the stone." With a bit of a discouraged tone, the apprentice said, "But I've been watching you and there was not even a crack. Why keep doing the same thing over and over again?" The stonecutter got down on one knee and he felt the smooth line he just created. He said, "Each strike was not wasted. And even though we could not see what was changing with our naked eye, it is through that consistency and effort that not only was the stone being molded, so was the one who wields the hammer." And the reason why I like the story so much is this is the meditative arts. We're doing these breathing strategies, these sitting practices, these movement practices, and we're doing them day in and day out. And we don't always see the change happening day to day, but through our consistency and our effort, we're laying the foundation to reap the benefits and the fruits of this effort for the rest of our lives. One session is not going to change the world for you. The life modification and the ability to do this on a regular basis that starts to open up a whole new realm of possibilities. You need to find a guide, somebody that's going to help point you in the right direction. I've been studying for 36 years. I'm still just a student learning all the time. If you think that you're going to go to YouTube and sift through the millions of videos out there and get any kind of depth in your practice, you're highly mistaken and going to waste a lot of time. I've seen people come into the academy here that have been self-taught and they've sometimes trained 15 years. You look at their practice and it's barely scratching the surface. Having a guide can help save you so much time. Our lives are short. We're not around very long. It doesn't take much to have somebody in your corner helping point you in the right direction and navigate all of the thousands of different directions you can take this practice. So, what is your why? Find that reason, understanding the importance of consistency and having somebody to help point you in the right direction. If you do that, you're so much more off to excel in this game and get a lot out of it.
Wow, that's very practical right there. A mentor, finding a mentor, basically, somebody who can guide you. And then, of course, there are things that we cannot see, but somebody on the outside can definitely point those things that we perhaps need to grow. We need that feedback, right? And then you also talk about the power of presence. Is that correct? How do you personally stay grounded and center when life tests your patience or tries to pull you off balance?
There's always going to be problems that we're faced with, and there's nothing we can do about that. That's just the way of life. However, there is a lot we can do about how we let those problems and life scenarios affect our physical, mental, and emotional well being. By having an improved awareness with the meditative arts, we're able to see these imbalances when they first start. This is important because if you ever think about a time where something happened to you and you stewed on it for days, for weeks, even maybe, it's really hard to let that go. But if you recognize it from the very beginning and adjust how you respond to it, you can oftentimes save yourselves a lot of heartache by just being aware of this imbalance and having the tools to maintain your physical, mental, and emotional well being. When a problem happens, first, we just got to realize, is this a real problem? How many times do we stress over a problem and realize, "Oh, I didn't even need to worry about that. It didn't even happen." A lot of it is that anticipation. So the first thing you need to do when something like that comes up is this real? Is this something that I need to deal with? And if it's not, then go on. And if you need to make an adjustment, you can, but don't let it bring you down having the anticipation of something that might happen. Then the next level is a problem arises and it is a legitimate problem. It's something that you have to deal with. So you think about all of the things that you can do to handle this situation most effectively, and then you move on and you don't let it keep going. Now, sometimes a problem will come that there's nothing we can do about it. We can't change. It's going to be there no matter what. And there's many life scenarios that we could talk about where this problem will come no matter how much you practice your breath work, or ride the bike, or go swimming, it's not going away. In that scenario, you need to accept that the problem is there and then deal and live with this problem to the best of my ability and make the most out of life, even with this problem. Having the ability to notice these disturbances at a finer level in more detail rather than waiting and stewing over a problem for a week because you think something's going to happen and then it never happens. I can't
Right.
tell you how many times I've talked to people that are in this scenario. The meditative arts helps us recognize this. It helps us be more present so we can acknowledge where we actually are and then gives us the tools, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, to navigate those waters and do it with the least amount of negative energy.
Absolutely. And the Yielding Warrior, that is your online platform. What can people expect when they go out there? Tell me a little bit more about it, about the online platform that
Yeah,
you have.
so I have my book, The Yielding Warrior, which is teaching people about the basic concept of yielding and how you can apply it in many different areas in life. My online programs are geared around the different meditative arts from movement practices, breath work, sitting meditation, standing meditation, philosophical concepts, teaching people how to start to create an evolving life practice. And so there's many different ways that you can get involved with different platforms and programs that we have there. There's a lot of free content out there that I put out too for people interested in investigating more. There's a blog on the website linked to a lot of instructional videos. My Yielding Warrior YouTube channel has a lot of free content. If you're interested in getting deeper into it, I have a 2-week trial where you can jump into the membership area and see practices from Tai Chi, Qigong, sitting meditation, standing meditation, breath work, all of these different areas. So you can start crafting and creating an evolving life practice with the meditative arts.
Perfect. Yeah, that was going to be my question. Like, how can people get involved? So all they got to do is go to your website, basically,
Yes.
which is the Yielding Warrior, right? .com. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, of all the podcasts I've been on, I'm giving away a free copy of my book, The Yielding Warrior. If you just go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book and pay for shipping and handling, we'll send you a free copy of the book.
That's wonderful. For my authors out there, I always tell the listeners, if you read a book and you like it or whatever, just leave a comment. Go, let's say Amazon or whatever, Barnes and Noble, anywhere that you can find a book. This, not comments, but what do you call those? The reviews. Okay, reviews. They're very important because that's how people can find the content. I have a book myself, so I tell people, like, don't just send me a text telling me how great, how fun. Just go out there online and write this. These reviews are important. So I encourage people to do that. I myself, I'm gonna be downloading. I'm gonna be getting a copy from your book. I love to read my guest contents and study and read and then write those reviews as well. So that is awesome. Is there anything else I have not asked you that you want to tell our audience?
Something else, if this inspires you, I created an 81-day challenge and it's free. You can go to my website, theyieldingwarrior.com, and go to the blog and just look at one of the most recent posts on look up 81-day challenge. And it'll talk about the idea behind it. And each morning, basically, what it is training people to not wake up and the first thing they do is look at their phone and scroll through social media or answer their text or look at their calendar, all the things they've got to do today. It's training them to take advantage of those first few minutes in the day, listen to something positive and program the mind to be thinking about wins and something that puts them on a positive mental track. And then just taking 5 minutes and doing a 5-minute breath work exercise where you sit there and you just focus on your breath for 5 minutes. It only takes about 10 minutes a day. And if you do this for 81 days, I guarantee you there's not one person that won't be stoked that they spent the 10 minutes in the morning to start their day off that way. I think it's a great way to get introduced to this practice. What it is I've taken the 81 sayings of the Tao Te Ching. An old meditation teacher had me memorize the Tao Te Ching. And so for 12 years, every day, I would say all 81 sayings in my head over and over again. It was very powerful and I learned a lot from that. I'm still learning from that. And so I got so much value out of it that I created this platform as a way for people to get introduced to that and hopes that it helps kind of put a positive habit in their life.
We need to create new habits in our life because lately, with everything that's going on social media and this and that, there's a lot of noise. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, wisdom with us today. To everybody out there, don't forget to subscribe to Rosabel Unscripted, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you listen to your podcast. Thank you, Jeff. And for more conversations that go beyond the surface, I appreciate you very much.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Goodbye.